Okay, we are ready. We are ready. Hello, everyone. While we're waiting 2 more minutes, let me see some beautiful faces. Introduce yourself. How'd you hear about us? Um, and your background. Miss Mitchell, welcome. Oh, I have to unmute folks because I did have them muted.
I'm trying to, I guess I'm not showing today. Uh, my name is Keisha Mitchell. I am from Wisconsin. I moved to Georgia about a year ago. I've been an agent almost 10 years now, but I am starting from the bottom here.
Oh,
So it's coming.
wonderful. Welcome. How'd you hear about us?
Passion with the Wealthy Group.
Okay. All right.
Gave me your information and so there we go.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Dr. Crystal Davis, welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good
Thank you.
morning. Introduce yourself, background. How'd you hear about us?
Okay. Yes, I heard about GPI initially with the Atlanta Chamber, and I think I got the email from the National Business Minority Group. Anyway, I signed up and I listened to your session, which was amazing. That same day, I received a letter from SBA that my company was certified EDWSB. And so then I immediately signed up. After listening to you and all the gems you dropped, I was like, oh, let me get over here and sign up for the class. So I'm really excited to be joining the class on the 24th and learn all that I can learn to get going. So originally here based in Kansas. And I've
Okay.
owned my consulting company. This is the 19th year. And we do professional development and leadership and organizational training, which is also what I wrote my PhD on in servant leadership. So I'm really excited to be here.
We're going to change your mindset from that one stream to a management
Yes,
consultant with
that's what you
multiple.
really helped me understand, which is so different from what Apex here in Kansas tells us. And if she even said that yesterday, and I was thinking silently in my head, this is why I got to be with Miss Paula because y'all still teaching the same mindset that Miss Paula has told us to get rid of. So I'm listening to you, ma'am. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you. It is noon, and we had a lot of people that have registered and excited to hear AO share his journey. I'm going to spit a pen and make myself a pen too. Add a pen. All right. In the technology. Welcome, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. Before we get started, I always like to go over housekeeping. Um, let's start. I would like for everyone who don't know who we are. Again, we're Government Procurement Innovation. We are your solutions to federal procurement. I'm all about collaborating and us understand the power of partnering and sharing and coming back and teaching. That's why I'm so excited about today's webinar. Please, please, please include in the chat box your name, business and location, email contact information, your areas of expertise, background, and how did you hear about GPI? Again, when I see the number of people that are online in this space, it's all about collaboration. It's all about relationship building. And this is part of the process. So please go ahead and put this information in the chat. And if you're interested in this recording, we'll send it to you afterwards. So that's the only way you're going to get the recording. So thank you for joining us. Congratulations to Miss Barnes. She called me last week and no, about 2 weeks ago, she won her first contract. She is still working full time, but she won a 5-year contract to provide dumpsters on one of the VA hospital. So she's just providing 6 dumpsters under the, again, National Park Services. So it's real. It's real. You apply what you learn. On Saturday, I put up the wrong date. On Saturday, we have a webinar on information, September 21st. It's this Saturday from 8:30 to 9, from 9:30 to 10:30. And it'll give more information for for those of you who don't know about government, what GPI will do. Our 18-week cohort will be led by our master trainer, Dana Mason. She had a business in the 8A program and grew it to 20 million. And my whole purpose of creating this program, because it's about everyone sharing their experience. Her experience in this world was different from mine. So it's all about getting those who have the knowledge base and can guide everyone through this process. Again, the class will start next Tuesday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. I'm also excited. Not only are we doing this webinar, we are hosting AO, who is the president of the Atlanta NCMA chapter, and they're going to kick off their event September 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. Do they still have tickets? Or how close? Because they sell out pretty quickly. They still have tickets, AO?
I believe we have a few left. Yesterday we checked, there were over 120 something tickets sold, but there's only 150 spots. So probably less than 20 tickets remaining. So if you are going to attend, suggest getting your ticket now, sooner rather than later.
Yes. It's power in this organization. I am a member, and I want the GPI community to come out and support AO by becoming a member and supporting him at this event. So let's have the GPI community come on out and support AO as they kick off our webinar. This is the code of who we are. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's webinar. I mess up names, AO, and so I'm so grateful that you said just call me AO. But AO is the CEO and founder of the AVERY Group. He's also a GPI alumni. We're going to go into depth of his background. He's currently the president of the NCMA Atlanta chapter. He's also 8A and certified as a service disabled veteran-owned small business. So thank you again, AO, for taking the time out to enlighten people, share your journey, and help others along the way, because part of our creed is each one teach one. We can no longer work in an isolation mode. It's collectively, if we work together, we win. And right now, same way we have the efforts, I'm not going to talk, this is my personal opinion about the politics, but we got to get Madam President in the House, because what I've seen, what the Biden-Harris administration has done in the last 2 years is really opened the door wider for minority-owned businesses to step through. So it's important that we get in the game, no matter how much they open the door. If you're not prepared, then it's useless. So that's why I'm pushing everyone. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up with AO. AO, can you please share your background, how you started in this space, how we connected,
Yeah,
so that folks can understand your journey and where you are now.
sure thing, Miss Paula. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you guys on this call. And Miss Paula, thank you for having me. As a GPI alum, like this means the world to me because I'm able to share what I've learned from not only the training, but my experiences after the training and even before. So my background, I was in the military for about 15 years, within the Army specifically. And I had the benefit of doing both being a civilian and a soldier, through the Army National Guard.
What did you do at the National Guards?
Yes, ma'am. So I did a bunch of different things. My main military occupation specialty was federal financial management, where I had an opportunity to interact with contracting officers, interact with corps, and interact with soldiers. Then I got interested in IT, did some signal operations where I supported network operations when we were deployed in Iraq. And when I moved to DC, it really opened my eyes up to the world of government contracting. Even though I knew about it, I didn't know what the possibilities it could have. So living in DC, you see a lot of large buildings, you see a lot of different businesses that are stood up on the premise of government
And when
contracting.
did you move to DC? You left the military or you were stationed at a base in DC?
I was actually stationed at the Army National Guard Bureau. I was supporting the Army to gain a qualified audit opinion, which they still have yet to do. So I was actually a soldier when I lived in DC, and I lived in DC from 2013 till about 2018 when I moved to Atlanta.
Okay. Okay. All right. And you moved to Atlanta when? 20.
I moved to Atlanta 2018, and
Okay.
at that time, Miss Paula, I hadn't created the AVERY Group yet.
Okay.
When I was in DC, I started a business because I was like, government contracting, this is a lucrative business. I can make some money. And the fact that I was procuring goods and services for the military at the time, I felt like I knew everything. I thought I had the game down pat. So I started a company called Hunter Strategies, and I quickly realized that I knew nothing. I knew nothing on the industry side. So I started working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is a large prime nowadays. Their primary focus is accounting, but they've been in the government game for some time, supporting federal financial management and a bunch of other projects throughout different agencies.
Are you an accountant?
So my background is accounting. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in accounting, master's in government accounting, and I also have a master's in government acquisition and procurement.
Wow. Wow. So after you left the military in, you said 2012?
I left the military, I'll say 2018 when I was transitioning to Atlanta.
Okay. And then you got hired or after you left the military?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I actually had a project management job for a pharma consulting company before I transitioned to PricewaterhouseCoopers. I realized I was trying to, like many of us on the call, right, try to moonlight as an entrepreneur as well as work a full-time job. I realized that when I was trying to start my previous business, that I didn't have enough education to really be successful. Although I knew how to procure goods and services, it's not the same as selling to the government. So I realized I needed some OJT, on job training, and Pricewaterhouse wanted me as an accountant doing similar services I did in the military. So I thought it was a good fit to get on-job training, volunteer for a lot of opportunities such as pricing, proposal manager, writing proposals, so I could have that framework. So when I started my business again, aka the AVERY Group, I would hit the ground running.
Okay. And you started the AVERY Group when?
2018 when I moved to Atlanta.
2018. Okay. After you moved here, you were still working full-time or they were subcontracting to you? How did
No,
you transition?
yeah. So it was a very long process to transition, right? Like I started my business in 2015, 16, like Hunter Strategies. failed, right? Realized I needed on-job training, started PwC, moved to Atlanta, and I started because I wanted to be part of this community because I wanted to be an entrepreneur in the GovCon space. I started looking at LinkedIn as a tool to identify other entrepreneurs that are doing what I want to do. And I stumbled upon the National Contract Management Association. So when I moved to Atlanta, I was still a full-time employee with PricewaterhouseCoopers, but I knew that I needed to do other things. So started getting involved with the government contracting community, started talking and taking random meetings with people who have already been successful in the space, just to get some feedback, some guidance. And I think in 2020, I actually built up the courage. I think it was probably right after we met, Ms. Paula. I built up the courage and told my employers that I would no longer, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to start my own business, and I was fortunate that they wanted me to continue working with them as a subcontractor. And even to this day, we have a pretty good partnership where we go after opportunities together, and we still sub to them.
So what was their response when how'd you negotiate? Because that's a little gray area.
Yeah.
I'm still paying you full time, but you may be my competitor. So how was you able to navigate that?
Yeah, well, I think and this is like the theme that I tell with my employees, with my team, with clients. I think it's always important to add value, right? And what I mean by add value is like make an impact that people aren't necessarily thinking of. So when I joined NCMA, I got involved immediately. I became the assistant treasurer. I was ranting and raving. I was speaking NCMA's praise, right? And I spoke to one of the partners and said, hey, how come you guys aren't involved in NCMA? This is a great organization where there's a bunch of contracting officers, especially at the agency that you're targeting. You guys should get involved. And I think from there, they started understanding that, hey, Akinwande AO is not going to stay too long. Like he's involved in things that we're not even keeping tabs on. So let's just make sure we're supporting him. So when I brought it up to the partner, it wasn't anything that he was surprised by. He knew that one, that I had higher aspirations than the next position I was going to get promoted to. And he knew that I was very, very well versed in the government contracting space, not only as a proposal writer, not only as a pricing expert, but also as somebody who can deliver quality services to clients. So
how did the wife think about you just leaving your good six-figure salary?
It was an interesting conversation, Ms. Paula. I kind of woke up one day randomly, and I turned over and I said, "Babe, I gotta leave." Like that. And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I gotta quit my job. I gotta jump in this game with 2 feet." And she's like, "Well, is there a plan? Like, what's going to happen?" She was afraid. It's different. It's difficult to believe in something that hasn't been fully realized yet. And we still talk about it to this day. So it was she knew I wanted to go this route for years. She was just very surprised at my abruptness in it. But eventually we came up with a game plan. She had faith that I wouldn't let our family fail. I'd have to drive Uber if necessary until we're able to generate revenue. Plus, I also was shaping opportunities in the background that we could support. So we had a plan, articulated that plan, and it just so happened that my old employer wanted us to subcontract, so we really didn't have any break in revenue.
Okay. And when did we meet? And I forgot how we met.
Yeah. I think we met, I want to say early 2020, if not 2019. And we met through a good friend and mentor of mine, Stacy Mollison. I think Stacy met you when you were at SBA. And at that point, I was still trying to get my feet wet, right? I had a good foundation, I had a good understanding, but I didn't know how to put it all together. And she was like, "Let me give you somebody's number. You need to talk to Miss Paula." She trained me. I found a huge amount of value. And since then, I've been contacting you on if not a monthly basis, pretty frequently, just to touch base with you, get some mentorship. And it never fails that you give me homework after we talk. So this has been a great relationship that we've been able to cultivate and foster. And, I look forward to the many years that we're able to continue our relationship, Ms. Paula.
I am too. And so you got your first subcontract in 2020. Did you get any more, or you just lived on that for a while as you built the relationship and began to support NCMA and surrounding yourself with like minds, not only from the government side, but you have a lot of the large prime contractors from DC coming here. And is that what you found? Because you've been in DC and you know everybody in DC or that DMV area is a contractor. Coming here, what has been your experience now that you've been able to see both sides?
Yeah, I think moving to Atlanta was actually a blessing in disguise. And I say that because in DC, it can be very, very overwhelming, right? There's so many different agencies. There's so many different people that you're going to run into. Because essentially I'll say, if we had to put a percentage to it, 70% of people in DC are in the government contracting space. So you don't know what's real. You don't know what's fake. There's a lot of noise out there. Whereas Atlanta, the community here is really interesting because everybody supports one another, or at least the people that I've run into, right? Like people are looking out for you. They're giving you free advice. They're not charging you. They're putting you in contact with other people or other relationships that could help you propel your career. In addition to that, there's only really one major agency here, which is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So instead of me trying to take the shotgun approach and go after all these various agencies, it gave me an opportunity to have laser focus on one agency, build relationships, connect, understand how they procure and buy services from industry, and really, really understand the agency intimately to be able to go after work. To answer your first question, Ms. Paula, when I won my first contract, I just started going out there, right? Like, hey, who can I meet? Who can you introduce me to? Because I think two things that are very important in this industry. Relationships, of course, are one, but the second piece is education. So I didn't feel like I had the relationships, and I still feel like I don't have the relationships that are needed to take me where I want to be. So I just started going to different events. I think it was COVID during that time, so everything was virtual. So I actually ran into a person on an event just like this, a webinar just like this, started DMing one another, started talking about capabilities, and he had an opportunity where he needed to serve a disabled veteran-owned small business to support a contract. And from there, I got one person on contract. And then after that, it started snowballing to having a team of 15 subcontractors supporting effort at the VA. And then from there, it kind of started progressing with more relationships, more subcontracts, and working our way up to being a prime contractor.
So the relationships, because that's always, I think, as part of the training, I think people, once they leave, even though I've provided the blueprint, they're not quite sure, well, what is the next step? I have all this information. How do I really begin this process? And so can you share, what was your first step? We heard you quit your good six-figure job. You got in, allow your employer to become, you were a subcontractor, got involved in NCMA immediately. When did you start? When did you become a member with them? And how did that help also you navigate in this space?
Yeah, so I started NCMA before I even left to start my own business. I started NCMA when I first moved to Atlanta, so in 2018. And the reason why I did that is because I like to know what's coming, right? And like I say, the best way to see the future are two ways: books and mentorship. And the reason why is because books, you're going to be reading about people who have accomplished great things, and it talks about how they were able to accomplish it. And then mentorship is important because people that have done what you want to do, they've already experienced it, they've already laid the path, so they can tell you what type of obstacles are going to come your way. So I joined NCMA because of both relationships and education, and it's made me pretty known in the industry right now. As far as your question on like how do you get started after your class, right? It's just like anything, you got to practice, right? Like there's so much information that you share, right? From proposal writing to building relationships. And what you gave us or gave me was the foundational knowledge to be able to speak the same language, right? And that's very, very important. Think about if you're a basketball player, right? Or you're on the basketball court and you want to get picked up for on a team and you're saying, hey, pass me the ball so I can kick a field goal, right? You probably won't get picked up because you don't speak the same language. It's the same thing as government contracting. You have to be able to understand what IDIQs are, BPAs are, teaming agreements, NDAs. Because if you're like, hey, what's an NDA? Automatically, you probably won't be working with that person because they realize how green you are. So the best advice is to practice, right? Even a lot of people get analysis paralysis because there's so much information out there. There's so much information that you share, and they're like, okay, where do I start? It doesn't matter where you start. It just matters that you start somewhere, whether it be going to industry events, going to industry days, writing proposals for RFIs and source of salts. It's everything at once all the time. It's not just like, hey, I'll just do this, focus on this, and then something else is going to happen. It's building relationships. It's building your infrastructure. It's understanding what agencies buy what you sell. It's understanding what agencies are affiliated with various organizations. It's understanding who are the players in the agency that you're trying to break into to be able to win some work. So there's a bunch of different things, but I think the basic thing is just get out there, right? Get to meet people. Because at the end of the day, right, like, although the FAR governs federal government contracting, although there's a lot of bureaucracy, at the end of the day, the people who are making these awards, the people you're going to be working with are people. And people want to work with people they like, know, and trust. And if they don't know you, you probably, especially in the very, very beginning, you probably won't get an opportunity. But if they know you and there's an opportunity, right, and you have a way for them to get to you, a vehicle, whether through the SDWSB or GSA, now they know how they can support you. But they have to know you. They have to believe that you can actually do the work, and they have to trust that you will deliver and not make them look bad because it's their reputation and their name on the line as well.
And I think what I appreciate what you've done as I've watched your journey is that you were slow walking this. I was like, when are you going to do this? Have you done this? Have you did this? But I appreciate how you slow walked it. Would you say it was slow walking as I?
I would think so. Every time we talked, you did articulate, hey, you need to, you have to, there's so many different things you still have to do. But I think everybody's journey is different, right? There's some people that I've met in this industry, they were like, they got their first contract was a subcontract with 50 people with their past employer. Unfortunately for me, that wasn't the case. It was just me on a subcontract. So people's journey is different. I think at the time, I had two small kids, a 7 and a 4-year-old. At that time, they were even younger, and they were my priority. Of course, I wanted to build a business, but I wanted to be a father first because that's the most important thing to me. As they've gotten older, as we're starting to mature, we're seeing different trends in federal contracting. One example, Ms. Paula, you just mentioned, is depending on who wins the electoral race, right? Things can change significantly and dramatically for underserved communities and minority-owned small businesses. So I'd rather be in the game and dictate my own destiny as opposed to wait. But there's a fine balance with that, right? So many people, I've seen companies, again, that have jumped into the 8A program, have been in for 9 years, and they haven't won a contract. So it's about knowing, hey, do I have the relationships to support me going after my 8A? Or is there a use case to look after a mentor protege agreement? Or is this the IDIQ or the contract vehicle I should go after, given the agencies that I'm targeting? So I'm an accountant by trade, right? I love data, I love numbers. And a lot of the times I had to slow roll it because I really needed to understand I need to know, I need to order my steps. I need to know, hey, if I do this, what are the ramifications to my family? What are the ramifications to my personal life? And if I don't do this, what are the ramifications for my business? So just always taking that cost benefit analysis is something I do pretty frequently. So yes, I did slow roll it compared to other people in the industry, but you just have to do what works for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when did you get your certifications? When you got the service disabled, was that immediate? And what was that process for you for our veterans who are out there? And again, I thank you guys for your service. So what was that process? And for me, I want to bring all the veterans in because in my mind, when I'm talking to veterans, I'm asking them, what military bases were you on? You're going to go back to those military bases. Was that part of your strategy? Was the service disabled certification hard to obtain? And was that contracting vehicle helpful in you obtaining contract awards?
Yes, it was most definitely. I think I mentioned that one of my first subcontracts that's like one of the largest in our portfolio now is with Booz Allen Hamilton. I would never have the opportunity to work with Booz Allen Hamilton if we were not a service disabled veteran-owned small business, because large businesses have subcontracting requirements as well. And in order to be able to continue to work on these contracts, they need to be able to meet some of these goals. Now, not all prime contractors are the same. Some adhere to those subcontracting plans and some do not. But to answer your question about the certification, I got my certification in 2018 when I started the business. It was not difficult, but it was a lot of paperwork. I think it's a very beneficial certification, especially as we're starting to see the political landscape shape, because we don't know what's going to happen with the 8A program in a couple of years. But we see that, one, even Republicans and Democrats, right, they're not going to get rid of veteran benefits. So much so that the VA operates outside of a different budget than all the other agencies. So if there's a sequestration or a shutdown, it doesn't impact the VA.
Oh, you got it.
So that's one aspect. So if anybody is going to sell, because there's a lot of people that sell things in this industry, if somebody's going to say, "Hey, I'll get you guys on a service disabled veteran-owned small business certification or an 8A certification," I would say don't do it. I've paid for 8A and I haven't paid for SDVOSB, and I can tell you I did the same amount of work for SDVOSB that I didn't pay for with the amount of work of the 8A that I actually did pay for. So if you are going to get your certifications, do it yourself, because you know your business more than anybody else. And the consultant that you hire is going to ask you the same information that you have to research anyway. So it's just a waste of money. You mentioned, has the certifications been helpful? Yes, they have. I mentioned the subcontracting opportunity, but agencies buy differently, right? You have to understand, if you're targeting a specific agency, you need to know how they buy, what vehicles they use, right? For me, SDVOSB is most relevant for the VA, right? Because they have the Kingdomware regulation where they have to use a rule of two. If two or more service disabled veteran-owned small businesses can accomplish the requirement, then they have to dedicate that to SDVOSB. The 8A program is non-existent in the VA. Like, they give sole source awards to SDVOSB. I haven't won one yet. I'm still trying to figure that enigma out. But they do set contracts aside for SDVOSB, which ultimately the goal of this game on the industry side is to limit competition. Those certifications help you limit competition so the government can get to you.
So your first, I heard Pricewater was a subcontractor. Booz Allen, that was a subcontract?
Subcontract as well.
So how did you even get to the players? How did you know that they had opportunities? How did you get into that space? Because they are actually a large prime contractor as well. And a lot of times I tell people you get lost because those large prime contractors of that side is like almost like the government, they're institutionalized. So how did you know, or how did you begin to market to Booz Allen, or that just fell in your lap?
I think it fell in my lap, Miss Paula, honestly. I say lucky. A lot of people say it's just opportunity. I think they say luck is preparation meets opportunity, right? With Guidehouse, I was prepared. I was already registered in SAM. We were already at SDVOSB. We already had QuickBooks. We had a good, like, we had things to say, hey, we're actually a business. We were registered. So when we were having those conversations, it was nothing for PwC to say, hey, let's pull the trigger. Let's start working with our subcontracting folks. Here's a subcontract. Let's start this work. Booz, that happened because, again, I was hungry and I was everywhere. I went to every networking thing that was virtual. I met so many different people, and then I would follow up with those people like, hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. And I would continue to follow up. There were instances where people ghosted me, and there were instances where people followed up and nothing became of it, but we still had that relationship. Sometimes some of those people are even my teaming partners to this day. And then there's instances where things just fall in your lap, right? But it's still your responsibility to grow it. So although there are subcontractors, we were managing them like they were our prime clients. So we were giving them status reports. We were trying to be as professional as possible, so much so that we started with one person and ended up with 12 people that made up a good size of our business.
Wow. Wow. So that's the key is the follow. I heard follow up. So you go to an industry day. What do you do after that industry day? What does your follow up look like to people? Because I think people get discouraged when government people aren't answering or whoever you're marketing is not answering. What's your follow up generally look like?
Yeah, so I'm not the best at it. I'm not going to lie to you, Miss Paula. There's a lot of room for improvement. But when I go to these events in the industry that you see so many people, you meet a lot of people, and believe it or not, I'm not a huge extrovert. I like to hang out with the people that I know and I'm familiar with. But during that time, I was meeting so many people, but you only really connect with a few people, right? I would follow up with those people I truly, truly connected with, not just exchange business cards, because I'm not going to be remembered. If I'm able to connect with you, there's going to be something we had a conversation with to remember. From there, I just say, hey, it was great having a conversation. I'll throw what we talked about or something that was definitely memorable. You know, like, hey, I love that outfit you were wearing, or hey, somebody in my family just talked about going to this school. I make it real, right? Because again, people are people, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. So that human feel is very important. And then second, I set up a 15-minute interview or a 15-minute conversation with them, because 15 minutes isn't going to take too much of anybody's time. If they like you, the 15-minute call it can transition to 30 minutes or an hour, depending on what you have going on. But the 15-minute call, most people won't say no. The thing I want to warn people is many a times they're like, hey, great meeting you. Let me know if you have a contract opportunity, right? And I think that's
repeat that. You got stuck. You stuck. You got stuck.
Yeah.
What did you just say?
Yeah, I was saying that one thing that I think people do as a follow-up is saying, hey, it was a pleasure to meet you. Let me know when you have a contract opportunity, right? And to me, I would, anybody on this call, never, ever, ever do that. And I say that because nobody owes you anything. You haven't done anything. You have no past performance. And ask yourself this question. When's the last time you gave somebody $3,000 that wasn't your family and that was able-bodied? Most people will say never, right? It's the same thing asking somebody to think of you for a contract opportunity if you don't know them. People reach out to me all the time like, hey, love the support. Congratulations on the win. Would love to support your subcontract. I haven't met them before. So why would I work with you to give out free money, essentially, right? So don't do that in your follow-up. The key to a good, successful follow-up is developing the relationship or connecting, and then having a conversation. Some conversations will lead to nothing. some conversations will lead to other conversations or other relationships. When I have those conversations, the main ask I connect, but the main ask I have is, hey, do you have two other people that you have in your network that you think could support me or I can learn from, or that could support me in what my larger goals are? Because people want to help people. If you connect with them, like, oh yeah, I connect you with this person in this procurement office and this person, or the project manager in this agency. So that's how I've been able to build relationships. It's not, hey, I'm going to meet everybody all at once. It's let me meet some people and then build off of those people that I've met and actually connected with.
And so you operated as a subcontractor for how long?
I would say, I mean, we're still a subcontractor now, but before we won our first prime contract, I would say 2 years, 3 years.
And you won your first prime contract when?
Last year, actually, around the same time, last September.
And that was under what contracting vehicle?
Yeah, so it was an SDVOSB set aside with the VA. And it was to provide data science support for the VA.
Okay. And so you began the 8A application process when?
Oh man, I started the 8A application process in January 2023. We got certified this year, January 2024. And the reason why, again, is because of some of the political landscape causing a halt to the 8A program applications. So I'm trying to get in before things start going awry, but I still got held up during that entire process.
Yes, because they stopped the 8A application because now the rules of the game had changed to the point where you have to now write a narrative on your discrimination. I said to you that you executed the blueprint perfectly, meaning everybody wants to go ahead. I want my contract. They want to skip parts of the business side. And two, your entry point was as a subcontractor, just to learn from a larger prime. And third, you got the 8A certification. And what's happened since you got the 8A certification?
Yeah, so since we've gotten the 8A certification, we've been fortunate to win a couple of about 4 prime contract awards with different agencies. So again, and honestly, the reason why we won those relationships is because of our past performance, right? And also because of our relationships. Our past performance showed the people who we had relationships with that we are actually a player in this game and we can deliver on what we say we can do. And then the relationships help facilitate those contract awards, because if you have past performance and if you have good past performance, rather, not just past performance, you have good past performance and you have a decision maker, I think those are and then the last piece of vehicle, those 3 are match made in heaven, because now they have justification to reach out to you and they have a way to reach out to you. So we've been fortunate to win award with the Army, CDC, as well as FDA.
And so what is that like for you mentally as you go from 0 revenue to this amount of revenue, and now I got employees and I need, what is that shift like for you?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I didn't grow up a business owner. Nobody in my family grew up a business owner. So I don't have somebody that I just learned from, right? So a lot of it is learning on the fly, but also reaching out to resources like mentors that have been there to help guide you. So that's been very, very instrumental in our business, right? Like I have mentors that I call at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what's keeping me up at night. What do you think? How did you approach this? And those mentors have actually become friends, right? To also include you, Ms. Paula. And I think there's a difference between somebody who's a coach and somebody who's a mentor. I think we started as a coaching relationship, and then we slowly became a mentor protege relationship. So right now, what we're really for our Avery Group is really focused on. We did respond to a good amount of source saws and proposals this end of the year, but we won 4 contract awards in a very, very short time. So what that means is, how do we cultivate a culture and an organization that is focused on delivery and focused on customer service? And those customers aren't only outside or government agencies. Those customers, to me and our back office and our operational team, are the employees that we're bringing on. So getting health benefits, making sure that we have a great timekeeping system, making sure we have a great accounting system, all these different things to help you actually run your business has been our sole focus. Our recruiting processes, what systems do we need to have in place to be able to get the right talent in? What awards or what recognition do we have to go after to say, hey, Avery Group is a great place to work. You should come work with them so we can deliver quality services to our clients. So that's been our main focus right now, building up our infrastructure, and then trying to think about what 2025 has available for us.
So I think a lot of challenges in underserved communities is positioning themselves for access to capital. Yes, it's good to get the contracts, but you're going to have to finance those contracts at least 30 days. And I say you have at least 60 days of reserves to be able to finance those contracts. So how were you able to obtain and receive the access to capital? A lot of us will work with factoring companies, which they finance that contract, and it's not the traditional banker. That's expensive money. So do you have a strategy around that, and how are you working with that?
Yeah, so mentorship, I keep emphasizing this, right? When I would talk to my mentors, they're like, hey, you're not going to get any loans from these banks right now, starting out, because you guys are so green. What I would tell you to do is identify ways you can get line of credit under your personal, right? And then as you're building the business, you're building the business and your business grows, then look for capital elsewhere. So we actually took the factoring route as well, just to have additional coverage. So I was leveraging my personal line of credit as well as factoring. To your point, factoring is very expensive, right? So thankfully, we started off small. If we want a large scale contract, the factoring would be the only option, and the revenues or gross profit would be a little slimmer, but we'd still be able to meet the requirements. One thing I will tell you, if you don't already know, paying your employees is the most important thing in your business. And the reason why is they may not quit. They may not, right? But what they will do is talk. And they'll talk to your client. They'll talk to people they work across from. They'll talk to anybody that's willing to hear, like, man, Avery Group doesn't pay on time. And that's the last thing you want your clients to know, right? You want to show them that you are a reputable business and you take care of your employees, because that's what they care about. They want to make sure that the people that are supporting them are well taken care of so they can take care of them. So factoring, personal line of credit, we've matured. You can take the SBA loan as well. I think during COVID, there were a lot of loans, so we leveraged that financing vehicle as well. And now we have a pretty good line of credit. I see somebody ask, what is factoring? Factoring at a very, very high level is you're providing, it's like an advance on your accounts receivable. So for those non-accountants in the room, you charge the government a bill for services rendered, right? Typically, the government has 30 days to pay you. You have employees that you have to pay bi-weekly, right? So as soon as you start the contract, 2 weeks after, you're making your first payment to your employees. If you don't have money, you're not going to be able to pay those employees. So what factoring does is saying, hey, you have an invoice, right? Or you have a contract. We will give you a specific percentage of the total amount of that invoice. And so you can pay your employees. And when you get paid, we get paid first, and you get the remaining after we've taken what you owe us and a percentage of profit.
I call it check cashing stores. In our communities, it's check cashing stores. You're borrowing off expensive money. So I'm glad you touched on that. And for me, I think in my first business, that was my stress factor. Payroll. Because you're now in a different role as opposed you just providing for yourself and your family. Now you have the responsibility of others' families, and you cannot spend their money. So often, small businesses will just put it all in one pocket. You have to set up a separate payroll that's going to deduct taxes out of it. You cannot spend that money and merge it in your general operation. And I think as a small business, people trying to survive, they just look at it as one pot. Would you agree?
I agree. I agree, Ms. Paula. And there's this book I read, and it kind of told me about making sure you have different accounts for different things, right? Operational account, owner's equity account. What else was it? It's like tax account, which is very, very important. You got to pay the tax man, or they're going to come after you, or you may not be eligible for government contracts if you don't pay your taxes. So, like, I definitely agree. I think that's a very great way to allocate your accounts and be able to handle your operations. One thing I wanted to mention too, Ms. Paula, is cash flow in business, not even just government contracting, is king, right? You can be making a lot of money, but if the cash flow is really bad, right? If your expenses outweigh your revenue in a month, it's going to cause downstream impacts. And that's also very important to say to lenders, because they need to know if you can pay your debts. So if you have really good cash flow, they have confidence that, hey, we're seeing that after AO or AVERY Group pays all their bills, they have 50,000 remaining to pay this $20 million loan. Okay, that makes sense. If you only have 2 cents remaining and you're trying to get $1 million loan, or even a $500,000 loan, or a $50,000 loan, the confidence with the lender is going to go down. So key is get financing when you don't need it, because when you need it,
the process now.
you may not get it in time. So start
Correct.
it as early as possible when your credit is decent, when you're not in a time crunch, right? Have that in your back pocket, so when you actually need it, you can just tap it really quickly.
And I think that was the challenge I had in my first business, was the cash flow. And the attorney fees. It wasn't that I did not have a backlog of contracts. I just didn't have operating cash. So I think, again, a lot of people look at the end, but they don't understand the foundational piece that you need to have and understand as a business owner. My program is not just about government contracts. Would you agree with that?
No, don't you offer a business ready piece in your
Yes.
programming? Okay, yeah. So no, not at all. Not just government contracting. I'd say it's a good way to understand government contracts, but at the very foundation, we need to be good business owners.
And understanding your liabilities and understanding that business is not based on your skill set. So the contracts that you were awarded, and those are contracts you were just awarded this year. That's why I say you followed the blueprint. You didn't jump into 8A and then start to build the relationships. You built the relationship on the outside. So now you're not wasting any time in that program. You've already begun the process and become a trusted contractor. So that's good. I'm going to open it up for a couple of questions I did see in the chat. If you can raise your hand if you had questions, please open up your mic, and we can use the next couple of minutes to ask questions. Anybody have questions?
I have
do
a
I-
question.
Another question. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Identify
Thank
yourself, please.
Yes,
Where you're
Majida.
located? Yes, ma'am.
Sure, Majida Abdul Kareem. I've been on a call with you before, Miss Paula, receiving this masterful instruction. And for AO, thank you for that information in regards to funding, which sounds like that's a heavy loaded conversation. I have a question because I heard this and I want you to tell me if it is true or not. When you get an award, can you take the award letter to a community development financial institution and they could front you the money as well as the factoring that you just taught us about and just having the personal lines of credit available as well?
So I'm not too familiar with the community development bank.
I am. I'm familiar with CDFI. That stands for Community Development Financing. They tend to operate and finance on microloans. The government banks don't like to award or give you $250,000. So SBA have programs, and you can look at SBA's programs that will identify those CDFIs. They tend to work with the startups, and it's not necessarily driven by your credit. It's more so on your business plan and your operations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Salmon, Darian, and then Deidre, you had questions? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, Paula, thank you so much. This is my second kind of cyber thing joining, so I appreciate the opportunity, and I thank you for speaking and giving some insight here. Earlier, you spoke on books kind of being the like a window into the future, and I just wanted to get your take or your advice on some books that you read or books that you've really liked that have helped with this subject matter.
Yeah. So my favorite book isn't a government contracting book at all. It is How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's my favorite book, and I read it every year. And the reason why I think that's my favorite book, again, coming from a military background, being a sergeant in the Army, I handle people a little differently, right? Like in the military, it's like, hey, I'm in charge, follow my lead, let's go. In business, in industry, that's not the case. And it's also the same thing as building relationships and how to make friends, right? At the end of the day, that's important because you're trying to find a way to connect with potential partners, contracting officers, government procurement officials. So that was a really good book. Another good book from a business perspective is EOS or Traction. Traction is a great book just for anybody in business because it talks about how to create a sustainable business from 0 employees to 250 employees. So those would probably be the 2 best books that I've read. There's a bunch more. If you reach out to me, link on LinkedIn, I can send you a list of my reading list if you're open to it, Darren.
Absolutely, certainly. Thank you so much.
And you can buy That's Crazy, Recognize Crazy and Run.
Oh yeah, that one too. That's definitely one of my favorite books as well. That's definitely one of my favorite books.
That kind of documents some of the challenges I had in my first business. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. Deirdre, you had a question. Ms. Denton?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Paula, for an always informative get together. You actually have sparked me getting on this journey. So without laboring the call to tell you my background, I will say that I know enough to be dangerous after 30 years with the feds and now working as a subcontractor with a prime contractor. However, what I don't know is infinite. And so one of the things I wanted to ask AO is, do you have a contact at the National Contract Management Association, I think the name of it is, and what is the benefits of joining that?
Yeah. Deirdre, my question is, where are you located?
I am here in Atlanta and actually met a wonderful gentleman down at the summit on Friday at Morehouse. So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, but I can't find his card.
Did you, because I was there as well last week, Friday. I think, so I'm a contact. So feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
But also, I think you may have met DeAndre or Demetrius Cottrell. The benefits of the NCMA. So I'm like a diehard supporter of NCMA. As I mentioned, I joined in 2018. But what I didn't mention is that I was also part of the Contract Management Leadership Development Program. And what that did was give me exposure to all levels of government contracting across the nation, CONUS and OCONUS, as opposed to just the Atlanta metro area.
Wait, break that down, CONUS. That's government language. Go to the layman's language.
Sorry, CONUS, continental United States, OCONUS, outside the continental United States. So both in the US and outside in foreign countries as well. So I went through that program because a good friend of mine who's also a contracting officer said, hey, how big do you really want to be? Do you only want to focus on Atlanta, or do you want to be global? And I said, I need to build relationships that are global because different agencies intrigue me and different agencies buy what we sell. So I went through that program, did okay. And what I tell people about NCMA is that it provides you with relationships, right? And it also provides you with education. NCMA has multiple chapters all across the country, and they even have conferences that occur throughout the year. One of those most notable conferences is World Congress, NCMA World Congress. And the benefit of that is you are in a room. I think there was 4,000 attendees, 4,000 to 5,000 attendees in this past conference. And I'd say 90% of them were contracting officers, cores, or people that are in the acquisition process. So I'm always about enhancing my chances to win, right? So I go to these events because I know the people that buy what I sell are there, as well as gaining additional insights or education that most people don't even know about until it's already been passed as legislation or it's been down, or you'll be behind. So NCMA, to me, offers a ton of education in the government contracting space, helps you understand how to position yourself, and how to speak the same language as government buyers, and also puts you in a room with these people to build relationships so they can like, know, and trust you.
And so for me, AO, why do you think the majority of the contractors are from DC and Maryland and Virginia participating in this specific chapter?
Because there's less competition. And like I said before, you go to DC, there's so many people that are in the government contracting space or trying to get into the government contracting space. So the whole goal in the industry for us, right, that's selling to the government, is to limit competition, whether it be specifically agency or contracting vehicle. So Atlanta, again, has one of the largest agencies, the CDC, that's headquartered here. Some people aren't going to fly to Atlanta, and there's not as many people in the government contracting industry here in Atlanta. So why not go where there's less competition?
And that's always been part of my strategy. It's specifically for the 8A program. And when I look at South Carolina, Alabama, all of those areas, there's no competition as well. Once you leave that DMV area, the competition is not as much. Mr. Henderson, you had one question, and that'll be the last question.
Yes, hi, thank you, Ms. Paula, for putting this together as usual. Very, very, very insightful. AO, I don't know if you remember me. I met you at the National Contract Management Association. I call it the handover or the passing the baton to you. So it's good to see you again. And my question is, I have a bit of that analysis paralysis that you spoke about. I came into Ms. Paula's program as a partner with a friend of mine who's a disabled veteran, but he's in the agriculture side. But my specialty over 20 years has been in the IT field. So thanks to Ms. Paula's class, I've learned a lot about, having a contingency partner and all of these things. But I don't know if, because of, primary NAICS codes and so on and so forth, I don't know if I should go as my own, have my own IT, which I did start an IT company. setting myself up in the system, in the contracting system under IT, and then partner with him on the agricultural side. I'm just in this space where I'm not sure how to move forward.
Yeah. So this is a very loaded question, Poland. So I would say you better than anybody else, right? I would evaluate, hey, because I've always wanted a partner, but now that I'm in it, I'm glad I don't have a partner because there's a lot of decisions you have to make. But I would look at, I think you guys developed a business model in this Paul's class, right? I would reevaluate your business model because if you guys are truly partners, you guys should be leveraging both of your skill sets, his agriculture background as well as your IT background. And you might find synergies where there's agricultural effort that needs some IT components to it. So I wouldn't say that you should completely abandon the partnership, because from what I'm hearing, he's a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, so that provides an advantage, especially right now that you guys don't have any awards. If you guys can at least sneak into something to start building your past performance. But I'm not against you doing this by yourself and building it from scratch as well. I think it just depends on how much energy you have, how much knowledge you have, how many relationships you have, right? If you don't and you need additional support to put that together, not say stay with your partner. If you're able to go by yourself, then let's get it, go after it. But
Thank
it
you,
may be
appreciate it.
a little bit more difficult because you don't have those certifications that your partner may have.
And for me, the reason I have people create that model, if you think of it logical, every agency is going to need administrative services, regardless. Every agency is going to need IT support. Every agency is going to need communication, social media. So to me, it's again removing your mindset. Yes, part of it could be your background, but some of it is not your background, and it's okay because that's who you're hiring to do the work. So are the contracts all in your background that you won?
Yes,
Al?
no, not at all. It started off in my background because I was like my subcontracts, again, a lot of it was based on my relationship with the client, me being able to speak this language. But as we've grown, like we have software developers, and I know software development, but I'm not the type to like really go in and build an application. We have data scientists. I have a very, very high level overview of what they're supposed to do, but like I'm not the one that's going in and doing and creating algorithms and things like that. We're bringing the right people into the right positions. I still provide oversight on some projects, or I'll bring a PM to provide oversight who's more a technical SME. But again, as Ms. Paula said, like the goal of this is not to be working in your business. It's supposed to be working on your business. And what that means is being able to provide strategic oversight or strategic guidance, provide a vision, so everybody can work towards it and support the infrastructure and execution, not to be the one in the day-to-day on the computer delivering. I still do it because that's been part of my strategy to enhance our client relationship, but that's not the best way. I think the best way is to win contracts, find people to perform on those contracts, and then look for the next opportunity.
Because that's how you're making your money. You make your money off of people. So it is 1:06. And please make sure you guys put your information in the chat if you want a copy of this Gmail. Remind people we have an information session next Saturday. And the cohort will start next Tuesday evening. So as a closing statement, AO, can you share your biggest lesson learned and provide some call to action for people?
The biggest lesson learned, I said it already, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them, right? It's important for you to do your due diligence, do your research, educate yourself before you talk to somebody. Because the more you know, the more you'll be able to foster that relationship, cultivate that relationship, and it could lead to a contract. I remember first joining the National Management Contract, or NCMA, National Contract Management Association, before meetings, I would be studying business cards of people that I had met in previous engagements. So when I ran into them, it would be like we were cousins, right? Yo, Stacy, it's good to see you again. And they wouldn't know my name from Adam, but it would be engaging. Like, man, this person really remembers my name. Like, we must know each other. And then we start building those relationships. So that would be my biggest takeaway. Call to action is just get after it. Like, do something. Don't just say, I don't know where to start. I don't know which way to go. Just do something. Come to an NCMA event. If you don't know anything, start responding to sources sought, because we won one of our 8A contracts through the Army from a year ago of a sources sought that we responded to, and we were able to essentially build a relationship. So do something. Get off your butt. Go to industry events. Grab coffee with somebody that you want to talk to. Research. Follow people on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn gives you a lot of information. Follow some of these government agencies. One of our prime contracts that we won, we were only bidders because we found on LinkedIn. So it's really crazy. So get on LinkedIn, identify the people that you want to be your mentor, see what they're doing, because if they're doing it, you should probably be doing it too. So that's my call to action. Get after it, get busy, don't get discouraged. It's a process. I tell everybody, crawl, walk, run. I'm still very much in my walk phase right now. So we're trying to get ready, building the infrastructure to start walking, but it's a process. Rome wasn't built in a day. Give yourself a little grace, but you have to get after it.
Have to just start. Thank you, AO. Start and vote. Do something. Start and vote. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, AO. I've been looking forward to this journey and your story, and I continue to watch you excel. You're not done yet. So in another 2 years, please remember the little folks.
I don't see any little folks on this call, Ms. Paula. So thank you for the opportunity, everybody. Again, if you have any additional questions, I try my best to connect for 15 minutes with people. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think somebody put it in the chat. But you know, you guys are part of the GPI community. I'm part of the GPI community, so we family. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm an open book.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone. You all have a great week. We got 2 more weeks to grind. You still have time to submit proposals before the end of the fiscal year. Hello, Ms. Bond. She's the one that just won her first contract. Congratulations.
Hey, we already shouted you out.
And understanding winning the contracts. Now the work is coming in, because now you got to administer.
Yeah, definitely. That's another nerve-wracking part.
All right, then. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Paula, hold on for some people are still taking the notes from the chat and getting information. So we'll give you 2 minutes. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Saturday, we will see you at the information session. The flyer is in the chat as well.
Okay.
2 minutes, guys. And Mr. Benjamin, no, it's not too late to join the cohort. Go to gpiwin.com. Thank you. Okay.
You're still hosting.
Okay.
I can in.
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you, Mr. Ben.